Problems, problems. The world is full of problems. The world is full.
Well,
Oh God, sometimes you have to laugh about them, about our way of avoiding problems. Yeah,
which every time one avoids it,
today's
there you go.
topic. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to say is to avoid a problem before it becomes a problem. It kind of sounds a bit like an oxymoron or, that doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense, but it does. Um, Sometimes we just ignore little subtle cues that could point us to, oh, there could be more. And we don't want to look at it for different reasons. And one favorite reason is I don't have time. But I have learned if you ignore them, often they won't then blossom into a very, very big problem, which could
Indeed.
be avoided before it became a problem, while it was a little issue or a little challenge or something to look at. Yeah, so that's our topic for today, and how much it can, make your life easier if you follow up on these so-called little things that, oh yeah, I'm sure it'll go away, and not address it at the time.
And for our listeners, I think you're going to pick up some little hints that, if done in time, will save you big messes. So stick around and we'll do what we can to help you out. How do you address a problem before it becomes one? And it reminds me a lot, Jacqueline, of the old English saying, a stitch in time saves nine. And everybody, oh, that's a cliche. No, no, if fabric's about to tear and you get a stitch into it, it will save having to put nine stitches in later. So in a business context, I think of that as good systems, good reporting systems, good statistical systems. What do you think?
Well, that's it reminds me of one of the examples that I use, and you might even use it as well. I can't remember precisely. I'm sort of very relate or sometimes to space travel because I find it fascinating. And there was this very sad story with the Challenger space travel in, I think, 1989,
Hmm.
which resulted in an explosion, and I think seven astronauts were killed.
Hmm.
And when they were investigating the problem, what caused the problem, it was that one of these O-rings, the rings that sort of tighten things, were faulty. And it was actually noticed by a contraction company. And the information wasn't passed on. And it's not, the interesting thing about it is that it was the cause of the Challenger to not be successful in their mission and resulting in death. But the question is, why was that information not passed on? And the second question or comment I get, oh, Jacqueline, that's a very rare isolated situation. It
No.
isn't. It isn't.
Mm.
It is a sad sort of account what can happen if certain things are not happening, like you said, procedures, and even without a proper procedure. And I'm sure that NASA has very thought through procedures. Even without a procedure in place, um, people sometimes don't take the leadership, or that they're not courageous enough to pass certain information on that could be detrimental.
Is this what
And
happened in this situation, Jack? Do you know why that
I
information wasn't
don't know
passed along?
precisely. I think some of the information is not disclosed to us.
Mm,
All I
mm,
know is, all I know from this report is that it was identified by one of the contracting companies, and it was
mhm.
passed on to a manager, and that's where it left. And it was apparently which I don't believe, but it was sort of negated as, oh, that's not important. It is very important. And everyone who works in this type of scenario, and while I haven't been an astronaut and worked in these scenarios, I've worked at university at physics. I know the importance of an O-ring. This was when we prepared for our experiments, which could take 2 days and a truckload of equipment, which is nothing compared to NASA.
No,
But we would check all these O-rings with utmost precision, because if they don't work, we have to do it all again. We lose a
mm,
day. We could lose a whole
mm,
day, and this would be quite expensive. So
mm,
anyone who works in this environment, from my perspective,
yeah.
would understand the
Mm.
importance about little detail not being correct. So I think our podcast is more about why are we not acting on these things? What can be in the way?
You know, another interesting experiment, it just had happened in my life. Just as you know, I had a double knee replacement a few months back, and I ended up in hospital, obviously in the orthopedic ward, and I was in there for a week, and there were 7 separate incidents where they let themselves down from right from the swing table that comes over the bed. One of the wheels was broken. That was the one I turned up. The light over my bed wasn't working. The maintenance, there were maintenance issues. The ice machine broke down. Let me tell you, if you just had a double knee replacement, the last thing you want to know is the ice machine's broken down and you need that ice on your legs. I mean, here's the interesting thing. I met with the CEO of that hospital, which will remain unknown at this point in time because I don't want to get sued. I met with him and his team. He
No,
said, we have 3 different systems in which people can report maintenance needs. Well, we had 2, and we put a third one in now where it's called room make ready. So a cleaner's got to go in there and check everything, make sure everything is right, all the rest of it, da 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 da. And I said to him, well, if you had 2 systems already, what makes you and it didn't get reported, and your own staff said to me that they had given up reporting maintenance issues because they don't get fixed. That's your
well,
issue, not
there's a
not
lot in there, isn't
putting
it?
another system in. Like this is a problem, people. You
It's
know,
not
you your
another
staff are not
system.
communicating with you.
There's a lot in there. I mean, let's have a look at it. There are 3 systems. I'd say one fully functioning system would be enough. So there's an issue around system, and you don't usually need a new system. You just need to pick one and make it work. And I mean, we're kind of laughing about it, but as you said, if a so-called little thing like ice is not available for someone who just had major knee surgery, that's a big thing. And then,
Mm.
okay, so the system isn't working properly. That's one thing. And then there is I suppose, some level of accountability, commitment to the cause lacking. I mean, I've seen sometimes people who've gone out of their way to help you doing things that's not part of their responsibility to help me to find my way or something. Now, I also understand, staff in hospital can be very, very busy, but there is also, and then you mentioned the communication to the CEO, highly, highly important. Why is this information not going to the relevant people, and the CEO is not informed about it, at least on a high level?
Well,
And
I got curious because this is what I do. Now I got, and as I said to them, I wrote them a letter and I said, look, this is the story. I only know that I don't know the health industry, albeit my wife is a perioperative nurse, but I don't know, but I do know systems. I do understand industrial systems, and this is an industrial system. This is one of the biggest hospitals in Brisbane. So that being the case, um, your systems are letting you down, and it's costing you. I guarantee you, it's costing you millions because the inefficiencies that are created when a system like that, let's say, like I had to call a nurse every time I wanted to turn my light on or off for a week. Nurses, an agency nurse is getting paid $70, $80 an hour, and they've got them wasting their time and money doing that. There was insufficient, doesn't matter. The point being, how do you address a problem before it becomes one? Make sure you have efficient communication as well as reporting systems.
That's
Make sure
absolutely,
that your staff know that they are needed and what they have to say is important. Act on it.
and that's right. And it's been followed up upon. I mean, you mentioned, that the staff said, well, then nothing gets done. And then people
Mm,
lose, their sort of commitment, and they give up. I mean, that's also something to be talked about. Um, is it not worthwhile ringing the bell a little bit louder if these things are consistently not happening? It's not just one thing. You listed 7 different things, and that's not to make the hospitals look bad. It's just, this is happening everywhere. I mean, and the costs, the additional costs. I mean,
mm,
I used to work in software development, and we understood that any bug, the later it's being found in the system, and it's unavoidable to find, error in codes late. It's unavoidable, but um, the earlier it's being caught, the less costly it is because the
mm,
fixing is much, much easier. And
mm,
yeah, and the thing is also, I mean, I as a manager, I have learned the hard way that if I turn a blind eye onto an issue which is seemingly small, and I just think, oh, I'm really busy right now, and I'm sure it'll work out, it doesn't. It doesn't go away. And what I noticed and learned the hard way is they become bigger, and then
mm,
my life becomes much harder. So I've learned, okay, I hear there's something a little bit off. It may not be a problem. It may not be an issue at all. It may just be me. But I've learned to follow up on it. And
mm.
usually, sometimes it is not an issue. And sometimes it's a small issue and it can be prevented easily. So my life down the track is not going to become a nightmare because I didn't look into it as a manager from a managerial perspective.
Would you agree, Jacqueline, that it's communication with your staff is super important? So when you hear that little bell going ding ding ding, go talk to the team. Go talk to the eyes and the ears that are involved in the situation. Get the measurements, and then because sometimes I've always been taught there are two kinds of problems in industrial systems. There are systemic and exceptional, and you don't want to get the two messed up because if it's a systemic problem and you treat it as exceptional, it's going to keep on happening. And if it's an exceptional problem, you treat it as if it's systemic and you change the system, then things go truly to hell. So you've got to be careful where you intervene. And the most important part in any industrial system is the human eyes and ears. Now, maybe with AI coming on and becoming more and more powerful, that will become a tool, but it will never replace the human being. And well, I don't think so.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I agree. We human beings, we have, things called the intuition. We can transcend our limitations. An AI or robot, as fast as they can calculate, there is a physical limit. So I believe that we can transcend our physical limits and we can be more. So just to take any sort of concerns out of people's minds. And obviously there are different views on it. Um,
Mm.
but I think the human sort of observation skills and picking up on cues, little tiny little things that can be often unnoticed, and sometimes we don't know why. what just happened? But then the thing is, follow up, just ask a few questions. Each time, I think, if you think there's something not right, I've learned always follow up. Even if you don't know exactly what it is, or you just have a strange feeling, maybe the person has a bad day and things appear differently than they usually would. So there is a lot around also human behavior and things we can pick up that we like to step over, or with our other podcast that we did a while ago, willful blindness, we just
Exactly.
turn
Yeah.
turn a blind eye to it, and we've all done it.
If you want to see, if our listeners want to learn more about that, they can go and get Margaret Heffernan's book, Willful Blindness, and there's example after example after example of where people have, as a group think, stepped over information, stepped over warnings, and said, "Oh, well, that gauge it hasn't worked for years. It's you just ignore it." Next thing you've got an explosion in an oil refinery. So instead of getting it fixed so as it does work, and then there's the blame game that comes in, and that's something I think when you start looking back at your NASA example, maybe the manager was concerned that who would get the blame, all right? And seven people lost their lives.
And
And was even in my hospital example, there was some fear amongst some of the hospital staff that there might be retribution against them if because I, as a patient, had the audacity to point out to the management that their systems were faulty.
mm,
So they were actually fearful.
of
And
of
this is something
record
that I'm going to invite our listeners to get really, really clear on. When you are in a command position, when you are the leader, right? It's your job to be vulnerable. It's your job to be authentic. It's your job to be trustworthy so as that your employees feel they can come to you and tell you anything. Because that, Jack, I really believe is how you address a problem before it becomes one. Your informal communication and your willingness to be open and vulnerable and allow people to come into your office or get out of your office and get around the floor. Sam Walton, management by walking around. Get to know people as people and let them
and
know that. I've got an example of that one too, because when I took over this company, they had a QA system, a quality assurance system in place, and they had these things called non-conformance reports. So when something went wrong, they'd write up a non-conformance report, and the QA management would investigate what happened and all the rest of this. Okay, so I came in and I said, no, we're going to change that. I want more of these reports, but we're going to call them quality assurance statements because I'm interested in what we can improve in this system, not just what went wrong. So I want to double the number of these reports coming in because I want you to be looking at what improvements can we make, not just looking for the faults. Well, it took me 6 months to get a single idea out of the team and this was the idea. Hey, the night shift, we go into the cafeteria, we switch on the lights, and all the lights across the whole cafeteria for 50 odd staff. And when there's only 10 of us here, they all come on. What if we have two switches and just the kitchen area lights up? Because that's good enough for us, and that'll save us money in terms of power. Well, Jack, it costs more to make the change than what it would save, but we made the change anyway. Why? Because I want to send a message that your ideas matter to the team. It
and
was
and I
$500
mean,
investment in trust. You bring an idea to me, I'll do something about it.
and
And that, yeah,
that
sorry,
is
Jack.
important. That is important. I mean, I'm just curious about when you had this, when you said that it took such a long time for ideas to come through, what the reason for that was?
Okay, so that was if you these people have been through a very traumatic situation where the whole company was at war with itself. The factory was at war with the officers, the women that were at war with the men, the previous general
Right.
manager had been sacked for
Right.
sexual discrimination. So it was it took a lot of time to get the trust. Young new boy
Right.
comes in and all of a sudden he says, "Oh, we're going to do things differently. Things are going to be good in the world." And they cynically look at
Yeah.
me, "Yeah, righto, righto."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I met one of the senior managers and it was like this. Yeah,
Yeah.
just want you to know that I don't think we needed a new general manager. That's where we started from. So
Well,
if I
that's,
got an idea in 6 months, I'm going, "You beauty, I did good."
I mean, and the thing is that that's also important for the audience to understand that sometimes you can be entering a situation where trust is destroyed,
Mm,
and restoring trust takes a long time. And yes, you already pointed out you have to be the example as a leader,
mm.
also being vulnerable. It's not going to be easy if you are confronted with someone who's sitting there like this. No, I don't need. I mean, yeah, it's not going to be easier. And then the question is, how committed are you to change it around? Obviously, you were very committed. I mean, that's how I know you.
But that,
And
that
and
that's where the gold is, Jack. That's where the money is. It's not like it's not doing it because it's a nice thing to do. No, it's because it will make serious money. We turn that place around from losing hundreds of thousands of dollars to making three times as much as it lost each year because the people joined the game. They played the game. They wanted to be in and they felt like a team and they felt that they were cared about and we got somewhere. We made a huge difference in that. It was the best fun I've had for a long time.
oh, yeah, I get this. And this is also, I mean, sort of on a little side note, this is also why I used to love teamwork so much. Is this getting together, getting it done. And when it's prosperous, everyone prospers. I mean,
Yes.
everyone benefits from it, and it's so much more fun. And yeah, I do also remember some of my sort of projects where sort of similar type of things happened, and then people really wanted to come to work
Mm,
and fix problems. I mean, as I said, I worked in software development. There are lots of problems and errors. It's, sometimes, can be half of the year's problem solving, and it's part of it. But it is also a lot more fun,
mm,
and it is so much less costly if it's fixed in the initial phases rather than letting things go. And when things are kind of slowly deteriorating, it kind of has this own momentum of that things are not so good, and then they get worse, and then they get worse, and then it becomes an overwhelming task to pull
yes.
it back on track. And then they have to call someone
Mm,
like you in and say, hey, we have this really dysfunctional company here. And it's
mm.
actually not funny, but we have this dysfunctional company here and you got to fix it.
But what's sad is the waste, is the waste of human potential, the waste of money. When you have that kind of um, disruption in your company. I mean, I look at this hospital example I give you. I because I had a week. I interviewed everybody from the surgeons
You
through
were
to the
supposed to
nursing
be
unit
sick
manager,
there.
the
You were,
cleaner. So, well, but it's like got my brain using. I can't help it. The thing keeps moving, right? And I talked to
yeah,
all these people, and so many of them were like, well, it's to them it's just they were just doing their job. They didn't have time to think about the fact that there was a lack of equipment or this and that and the other thing actually is going to ultimately affect their employment. They were trusting their upline to do it, and when they weren't getting a response, they stopped asking.
yeah,
And that is a deadly disease. I hope this hospital is capable of solving it. They have thousands of staff. I know it's a big ask, but again, this is about how you structure your reporting lines. And if you have too few middle managers, then that gets too many teams to actually manage and communicate properly. If you have too many layers of middle management, then it gets to be too much a pyramid, and so much harder to get the information through to the
Yeah,
top. Yeah. So these are things that there is no simple answer to. But what I would say to everybody, the most important skill in business is the ability to communicate and trust and be trusted. And that's if you can do that, then people will bring problems to you. People will say, okay, look, I saw this, or this may not have shown up in the data yet, but did you know? Are you aware? You know, and then, as you said before, get in amongst it. That's the little bell going off before it becomes Big Ben clanging in your ear.
that's
And you've let a customer down or something like that.
that's right. And sort of when I was more a junior manager, I noticed that some of the other senior managers, if they were on their toes, they would, maybe sometimes prompt me and say, "Hey, have a look at, have a chat to so and so. I've heard something, just check it out." And
Mm,
they wouldn't, if they're on their toes, they wouldn't let a little concern just go past and, oh yeah, it's okay. Um,
mm.
and and the thing is, it is also very rewarding when you do follow up and you can fix it and you think, oh, cool, I've caught one early. It's not going to give me a big headache later. And things are a lot smoother, and people are much more enjoying their job, which is also part of it.
This is
And
funny
yeah, yeah,
because we used to have a joke in this company that I read. It was a printing company, right? So if we got something wrong, we'd have 50,000 reminders we got it wrong because we'd done 50,000 copies.
it's a good one. You definitely got this one wrong. Look at this big
You
stack of
definitely get it
paper.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So
Um,
they could be pretty expensive, but don't step over things. Whatever you walk by, you're owning. And if it happens, then goes to crap. That's going to be
yeah,
hung on you. If you
yeah,
walk by it. I mean, yeah, I know I bet there was a scurry in NASA after that happened. Everybody, and as you say, a lot of information got buried. But I also want to make one other point is that if that manager who received that information from the contractor buried it because he was uncomfortable in fear or whatever, he is in the same situation as the CEO of this hospital. You know, they are the CEO. And message to any CEO that's listening in there, if you think you're not responsible for everything that happens under your watch and that you think you can delegate that responsibility down the chain, you're wrong. Wake up. You can delegate the jobs, but the responsibility lies with you. You
yeah.
need to ensure that the people you've delegated those jobs to have your trust and they trust you, that you have communications with them, that they have the capability of delivering the outcomes that are required. And if they can't, then you have the responsibility to replace them. So it's
And
on the CEO. And on what's not on the CEO is on their deputies or in the management committee.
and also with this horrible example from NASA, I mean, I'm sometimes that's my own opinion. Sometimes when I read this, I think, oh, there's got to be more to it. Um, and maybe there was more to it. But and you highlighted the responsibilities of the leadership team, but also, and that's true. Ultimately, it comes back to to the leader, but also every single employee. I mean, we all have everyone has
Yes, we
responsibility.
do.
Yeah,
And we're all leaders, either of ourselves. And if we want to be
yeah,
leaders of others, well, we start by being a leader of ourselves. Like if you're a customer service rep, you make sure you look after your customers' jobs inside the factory as well as look after the customer on the outside. You show some leadership, make sure that everything's done right. You know,
Yeah.
it's both sides. You know, and if you're a machinist of some form or another, and you want to expand your capability, then do your job really, really well, and then create opportunities to improve the efficiency, to think about what you're doing. How do you make things better? Whatever job you're in, whatever you're doing, how do you improve? How do you bring those ideas forward? Be proactive. And in
And
doing that, you'll find problems before they become problems.
no problem. And you also prepare your own career path as such, because people who are accountable and take on more responsibility and these type of things, these people are sought after in the
Mm.
business world. So shouldn't be your only reason, but when you do this, you find that people pay more attention to you.
You
And
also have more fun at work because you're
yeah,
like, oh, now I'm employing my brain. What else? What else can we do this? You know?
that's right now, switching on my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because you get to
that's
a point
right.
with a job, after a couple of years in a job, you know the job, you've gone through the learning stage, and it might have been a bit exciting to learn it. Now you're just mechanically doing it. I was watching a webinar the other day, and the guy um, compared uh, being good at your job to being a magician. So when you see a magician do a trick, sorry,
True.
they're doing a trip, yeah, they're doing a trick that they've done at least 500 times probably before you've seen it, maybe 1,000. So that is simply a system to them. They are bored with it. They know what's going to happen. It's not entertaining for them. But if the magician doesn't present it as entertaining to his audience, and if he's
Nobody's
slapstick about
entertained.
it ain't gonna work, right? So be a magician in your job. Be a magician. Know your
That,
job,
that's a cool.
but do a little bit more. Do a little bit more. Entertain and or find a little bit more in that moment to offer your employer or your team or whatever else. Um, Again, this is essential in addressing problems before they become one.
Yeah, I actually think I love the idea of this comparison with the magician and be a magician. That's really cool. I also think that's a really cool note to complete the podcast on. Be a
But
magician.
be a
Magically
magician.
make those problems.
Well, I hope that gives our listeners what they want. And of course, if they have any questions, they can get a hold of us, comments, any subjects they'd like us to get into, let us know. We're more than happy to hear from you.
Yeah, let us know, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.